Hey, welcome to the Go-To Therapist podcast. In today's episode, we talked to a physical therapist from Ireland who initially felt the need to do 2-hour plus treatment sessions to now having the confidence and clarity to well and truly cut that time down. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, welcome to episode number 17 of the Go-To Therapist podcast. And today's episode, we're going to go again and implement the past 15 plus episodes of clinical content and not only show you how to apply these in the real world, but show you how other therapists are applying them in private practice as well. So again, I know one of the big things that kind of therapists are a little bit skeptical of is, it's all well and good doing this stuff in professional sport, but how do you apply this in the real world, so to speak, and being in private practice? And that's exactly what these episodes are designed, is to help you make sense of the clinical content we've covered over the past 15 episodes and apply them in the real world, like you heard last week with Leon, and you're going to hear this week with Alan. So Alan, I'll remember I had a conversation with Alan. Alan was a bit skeptical of coming on the mentorship. He felt that, the information that we were going to deliver, because, and I don't mean this in certain regard, but, he had a belief that, because of his education and upbringing, that maybe this stuff was going to go over his head a little bit. I don't know whether that's because I worked in professional sport or for whatever reason. Okay, that's neither here nor there. But the one thing I would say about that is anatomy is anatomy, physiology is physiology, the human body is the human body. And the big thing that I take pride on with the Go-To Therapist Mentorship is keeping it very, very simple, okay? And the more simple I keep things, the more clarity I have, the better my physiology is when I explain findings to patients. The more clarity I have, I think my intent is a lot better with my hands-on, with my coaching of exercise or movement, and all that results in more long-lasting, predictable results. Okay, so if you do think that this stuff may go over your head, the one thing I can assure you is it's a very common sense approach. Okay, like everything, you may have new skill sets to learn, but as Alan said, the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. Okay, and that's where we like working with a particular type of therapist who is hungry, who's open-minded, but above all else, they want, they've got a hunger to get long-lasting results for patients. Okay, that it's not about, trying to get as much money out of patients as possible, try to, get them in for 10, 20 sessions. It's actually, being authentic and, being honest, being effective. Okay, and I think when you get that, and when you have therapists like that, then your word of mouth will grow very, very quickly. Okay, so some very, very key points to listen out to today's interview. I'll, as always, see you after you hear Alan's story, and I just want to highlight a couple of key points. Alan brings up some very important topics in today's episode, where along his journey he mentions, and I just want to highlight and reflect some of these points at the end of the show. As I said, Shane, the lead coach in the mentorship, who, as I said in the previous episode, works 100% of his time in the clinic and applies this step-by-step system in the clinic. Shane's asking the questions today as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's hear Alan's story. As I said, there's 5 or 6 very, very important points I want to pick up on after you hear Alan's story. And again, hopefully that'll help you reflect and apply some of the stuff that Alan talks about today in the real world with your patients tomorrow to help you get long-lasting results. So I hope you enjoy today's story. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Alan. And again, Shane will be asking the questions.
So welcome to the podcast. I'd like to thank Alan for coming on. So Alan's a physical therapist. It's Kildare you're based, Alan, is it?
Yeah, over in Crookstown in Kildare, Shane, yeah.
Perfect, cool. So I suppose first of all, Alan, if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself. So kind of before all the mentorship started, I know you've had an interesting story with, athletics and getting into therapy and stuff. So just give us a little bit of background information about yourself and kind of what got you kind of into the therapy world in the first place.
Yeah, cool, Shane, no problem. I come from an athletics background. I got really into it there in my 20s, to be honest. Joined the army when I was 22, going 23, I think, and that kind of really ignited my thing for fitness again. So I kind of got heavily involved in the athletics when I joined the army, and things were going really well for me. Representing Ireland then, and doing 815 on the track, and it was just a really good time. And unfortunately, a lot of injuries came very fast and kind of put an end to the athletics fairly quickly, actually, to be honest. So I went from about 23 to 28, and it ended very quickly. And that really kind of got me, it got my mind thinking. And I just really wanted to kind of, like, it was more on a personal thing. It was more so like I could see some people were sustaining very heavy training programs. And I seemed to struggle a little bit with that, to be honest with you. I get myself very fit. I get in good shape, and then I was just breaking down consistently, and couldn't really find the answers that I was looking for. If I'm being honest, I went to lots of people, even traveled across France and different countries and stuff like that. Just couldn't really get the answers. That's being honest, and that's why I really got into it myself for a personal journey, and then it's just evolved ever since then. To be honest with you.
Oh, brilliant, cool. And I suppose talking about the Go-To Therapist or the Pro Sport Academy, like how did you first come across us?
Yeah, so I started to see, obviously with Facebook, when you're typing in different things in Facebook, it's crazy how it works. But Dave just started appearing on my feed, actually. And I actually just looking at his videos, and I was listening to what he was saying, and I was kind of thinking, I was like, this lad is definitely making a lot of sense in what he's saying here. So as each video went on, and I was listening to him, I really started to realize he was actually hitting a lot of the stuff that I actually agreed with pretty much everything he was saying. There's sometimes you see on Facebook people talking, and they're a little bit like they're wishy-washy with what they're saying, and they're kind of hitting points and they're veering off. He was very clear, very concise, and that's what I liked about him, to be honest with you. And he was very honest as well. When I started looking more into stuff he was saying, he was honest about the mistakes he'd made himself and stuff. So a lot of that kind of just drew me into following him then, to be honest.
Perfect. And I suppose around that time, and I know there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of the therapy world, like I said, lots of gurus, lots of courses, lots of options. So I suppose, like, what were the big frustrations that you had at that time that really kind of resonated with you when you're listening to Dave talking?
Yeah, so like obviously, if you bring in 100 people in, you're gonna have good results with them. Say majority of them, doing simple things as you say, like getting the range of motion back. That's gonna nearly get a lot of people back. Like then you get the trickier cases. Then the ones where you're kind of got the range of motion back. They look good. They're telling you they're feeling good. You send them back out, and all of a sudden they're back in maybe 2 or 3 weeks later complaining of the same problem again. That's kind of what really made me. I was really looking for something to be able to cement. Where I could bring someone from A all the way down through B, C, D, and E, and I'd be very confident then saying, look, you're definitely ready to go back in. Okay, so that's kind of where it was. It was just the people that were kind of continually breaking down, which kind of reminded me of myself, actually, to be honest with you. And it was a bit frustrating for me and for them. And then when I seen Dave's kind of his way of working and how he was using a system, that it wasn't just kind of like working off, say, oh yeah, I think you're ready. You know, with the system Dave has, you're kind of saying, no, you've definitely gone through all the things we know, even from the research, to say that we're able to say you're able to go back jogging now because you've done all this stuff right now. So that's kind of where it really drew me in, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's a real. I think a lot of people relate to that. I think it's a real common frustration. I know when I first started treating, I think one of the biggest things was, you're almost saying, okay, let's see, give us a text next week if the pain comes back, and
yeah.
You're frustrated, the client's frustrated, and everyone's trying their best, but the pain keeps coming back. And I think that's what attracted me to work with Dave as well in the first place, was having that kind of system, I suppose, where you could feel confident to say, right, no, it's definitely ready now, let's go.
You've hit the nail on the head, Shane, and I've been lucky enough that I've been able to use this system. I work with a GAA club there over where I'm working, and I've had lots and lots. I'm with the whole club, so juniors all the way through to seniors, and I see lots and lots of players, and I've used the system now, and I have to say the results. I just kind of smile to myself and say, geez, thank God I started doing this stuff, because it's really given me the confidence to kind of say, now, don't get me wrong, there's still some tricky cases there. I'm not saying it's a foolproof 100%er, but the trickier ones, then you have to start thinking outside the box, and that's when we contact yourself or Dave and ask for a bit of help on that. Then obviously.
Yeah, and I think it's just having I know in my own case, it's having an assessment process that you trust, that you can skip to, no matter how complex the problem is, it might take you a little bit longer to get to the bottom of it, but
Yeah.
you're pretty confident that with the tools you have, you're going to be able to figure out at least what's going on. It might be the first session in real tricky cases, but by the time you get to session 3 or 4, you've kind of got clarity now. Okay, yeah, this is what's happening.
Exactly, Shane. And you know what I've actually realized is it's the questions you ask them as well. It's like really what I've noticed. Like since you obviously get very good with the mentorship system, and you practice your hands on, and you practice the exercise yourself, so you're able to deliver that message to them exactly what you want them to do. But what I've realized is the better questions you start asking, then the better feedback you're getting, and it's really getting good at asking the right questions. I think sometimes it might be session 3 or 4 where the answer pops in for whatever reason. Like I don't know why sometimes, but then all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, this makes sense now. Like so, but you having the system there. Even if that person had said that in session 3, 4, without the system, it's no good. We're having the system with the question coming in, then you can utilize the system. Then
I think that's it. I think in my experience, I think having the system guide you to ask the right questions, because you're kind of thinking, rather than just going through the motions with things, you're thinking, okay, well, why is that the case? Why is this happening? And it's not just taking something at face value. If it doesn't make sense in relation to their story, it's almost like, okay, that doesn't make sense. I need more information here. I need to ask this question. I think that's a really, really good point. I think, it is almost, it's the thought process, but you need the system to get you to that thought process of how to ask the right questions.
Exactly.
And I mean, I was just looking over, Alan, your kind of application, just to bring back some memories, but your application for when you first applied for the mentorship. And I think one of the big things from when you first talked to Dave for that kind of 30-minute chat before you came on to mentorship was you were spending a lot of time, especially with chronic pain clients, and, because obviously there's so much we can assess. So I suppose you want to just talk a little bit about that in terms of your journey, in terms of where you've come from with that and where you are now.
Yeah, so like obviously with chronic pain patients, there's a lot more. It's very complex, obviously, and stuff like that. But like like my assessments and like they could have taken it up to an hour just the assessment alone, like assessing individual joints. I was assessing pretty much everything, like, and getting a bit bogged down. Then it was just too much information. Then if you know what I mean, like too much information, then you're just kind of sometimes you don't know where. Yeah, you don't know where to start, like, so you can get bogged down with that, and that's kind of where I was feeling like obviously the simple cases come in, you're happy to send them back, and the complex ones coming in, you're kind of thinking, am I missing a trick here? There's just too much information, and like since doing the mentorship, I've just gotten, as I said, a lot slicker with my assessment. The big thing for me is the assessment. The very first session when someone comes in is nailing down the assessment, the subjective and the objective. Like once you can nail that down really, really well, it doesn't matter if it's a complex case or a straightforward just calf strain or hamstring strain. It just gives you the clarity and the confidence. Then I know where I'm going now. I've got a map, and you explain that to the person, and you both then just work towards the end goal. Like it's just much easier, Shane, to be honest with you.
I don't know if you're, I'm talking just from my own experience. I think one of the biggest things when you first start out treating is almost where to start. So you've almost got 3 or 4 different problems that you think are definitely related to the pain they're getting. But where do you start first? You try one thing and it works a little bit, and then you move on. Then the other thing gets worse, and it's getting that clarity of, okay, well, where do I need to start?
Yeah.
What's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck, and kind of go from there.
Exactly.
Perfect. And I suppose when you signed up, obviously it's a big commitment. Like what were your fears, or what were your doubts, or what were your worries, or did you have any at the time?
Yeah, no, of course I did. Yeah, I think everyone. I think you'd be lying if someone said they didn't have worries or doubts. Like yourself. I suppose I'm working in a full-time capacity with the army, and I have 2 young kids. And then setting up the clinic. So there's a lot going on. I'm going to be honest, there's a lot going on, but I knew if I wanted to give the clinic a really good go and set up a kind of a word of mouth clinic where people says, no, that guy he's doing good work over there. I knew that the mentorship was the right thing to do. So in terms of, I suppose just not being able to keep up, like doing modules 1 through 12, like was I actually going to be able to keep up, and how much what work would I had to put into it? Obviously all that type of stuff, like time is obviously a big thing as well. And then wondering, would I actually understand what you guys are actually kind of like what you're talking about? Obviously is another thing. But I have to say, getting off the call from Dave, that was the big thing for me. Actually, I'm being honest with you, having the 30-minute call with Dave and him breaking down and just realizing that, hold on a sec, no, I'm going to be well able to do this. All I have to do is commit. It's like anything in life, just you're going to get out of it like what you put into it, basically.
Yeah.
And I went in there, and after that 30-minute call, I said, no, Al, this is definitely the right thing to do. And I signed up, and then I never looked back. Actually, I used to have the video calls with you, Shane. I think it was once a week, was it? The way we used to do it was, we used to have great chats about different cases and stuff like that. And never really had a negative thought actually after I signed up, if I'm being totally honest with you, Shane.
Good. No, perfect. And I suppose I think a lot of people will relate to that. You know, you're busy, you're growing your clinic, you've got your attention and everything else. I suppose, what was your first experience? Obviously, let's say at the very start, you know, when you first went in terms of the delivery of the content, you know, how did you get through it?
So, like, I would say I'm the type of person who would have to go over things a few times to definitely make it stick. But when it sticks, then for me, it's in there. So I definitely did look at the modules quite a bit. I wouldn't have been the type of person who just skimmed through, say, module 1 and then yeah, that's grand, I'll just fire on now. But I definitely looked over module 1, I'd say at least 3 times, just to get a feel of, like, that was quite new material actually. For me, we wouldn't have covered in any of the courses I'd done before. We wouldn't have covered that stuff now, like the reflex and preflexes, and what other stuff was covered there.
The structure and stuff,
yeah, all that stuff, and the subjective, and the questions you have to ask, and whether someone's in rest or digest, and all that kind of stuff. It seems quite simple when you go through it, but you know, everything is simple when you know how.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. It's higher level thinking of why are we asking the questions we're asking, and what do the answers actually mean in terms of the presentation. No, good. Cool. And then I suppose then going on, when you started to get, let's say, 5-6 weeks in, like in terms of like time commitment, in terms of how easy was it to implement it in your own practice straight away? I mean, how did you find that kind of process?
And I implemented it straight away, to be honest. So if I did a module, I tell you what I implemented straight away actually was the hands-on. I had decent hands-on, if I'm being honest with you, because I come from a neuromuscular therapy kind of background and stuff. So my hands-on was decent anyway. So that wasn't a huge barrier, if I'm being honest with you. I found the hands-on stuff, I was like, oh yeah, I can get that. I was looking at the video, so oh yeah, that makes complete sense. It was more the assessments, you know, the assessments that they was doing, like the posterior knee stability and stuff. I knew I'd have to practice that stuff, to be honest with you. So straight away, I started to do them assessments for the lower limb straight away. And then I actually found the upper limb actually a little bit trickier, which was strange. And Dave was saying it's easier. That's mad how different people can perceive things. But I found the lower limb actually, maybe because I'm a runner, maybe, and that's all I ever focused on was lower limb possibly. And upper limb I just found a little bit trickier. That's just the way it was for me. But I implemented the assessment and test straight away to get a good feel of where someone was able to produce force or not so good at producing it.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying today's show. For more clinical content and tips to help you implement this content in the real world, please visit thegotophysio.com for more information, including my 6-step patient adherence checklist, which you can download for free. And also there's more blog content that helps you implement this stuff in the real world. You'll also find links to my YouTube show, the Go-To Physio show, as well as lots of more information to help you become the go-to therapist, helping real patients get real results in the real world.
Yeah, nice. And I suppose in terms of your results with that, so like how quickly did you start to get like confidence with it? How quickly did you start to see results?
So like at the start, obviously you're going to be doubting yourself. There's no two ways about it. Like, am I interpreting this test correctly? But then as I got a little bit better and time went on and the more practice I got, it was where I start thinking you get really good with Dave's stuff is when you actually make the test specific to what their history is. So what are their complaints? What has happened in their history? And then the tests make a lot more sense. If you're just doing tests for the sake of just doing tests, you know, you're going to get a little bit confused, I think. But if you can relate it to what the person is coming in and telling you, whether it be an ankle sprain or, you know, a knee surgery or something like that, then the tests are making perfect sense. And that's why I think when you marry the two together is when I start to see big results, to be honest with you.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think what you're saying there is a good point as well. Is it's like same with everything. It takes practice, and I think I've definitely been guilty. I think everyone's guilty. You know, you go on a course, learn loads of new information, you come back Monday morning, you go back to what you know straight away. But
Exactly.
I think having that accountability and that kind of, you know, that process where you're going to have to implement this straight away on Monday, implement it on Tuesday, that kind of starts to get your confidence up with it, and then it almost becomes second nature then once you've been doing it for a few weeks.
Exactly.
Cool. And I suppose then, since you first started the mentorship, what's been your biggest kind of takeaway in terms of results, I suppose? What's the biggest success for you?
I've had a few, Shane, to be honest with you. I've been very happy. I'm actually currently working with a guy who, with that GEA team I'm with actually, he's had like his eight knee operation now. I'm only new to the club, so he's had 8 knee operations, and he's never really. He says he's done rehab and stuff like that, and he has, but like I was trying to use during the season. He kind of had another episode during the season. I was kind of saying, look, you're gonna have to stop, and he says, no, I want to continue on. And we kind of had that little, you know, yourself with athletes, you have that little bit of a discussion. It's always a to and fro, but in the end, he went in for his op, and I said, look, we're gonna have to run through this correctly this time. I said, no, kind of like firefighting, like. And I don't know if you admit this, like the mentorship is brilliant, but if you have someone who's struggling with a lot of pain and has serious issues, you're going to have to pull them like from the sport. You can't just keep letting them play. You have to pull them, and you have to do it properly. Like I don't think there's many players out there that just don't want to do that, but he basically turned around. He went in for his eight knee operation there, and this has been ongoing for many years. And we've run through the whole mentorship from the very start all the way through to the end now, and he's up to 3K running and he's pain free.
Brilliant.
For the first time in many years, like. Nice. So like that's a great result.
Nice. Yeah, I think what I'm reading there, Alan, you know, just kind of delving into that a little bit deeper, I think having the tools, and it's not just about clinical skills, but it's having the tools to be able to explain to somebody why they can't train anymore. And it's not that we're taking you out of training because we want to take you out of training. It's just these are the steps that we need. So like you can't even do this test at the moment without getting pain. So exactly. Obviously you can't go play a final next week because you can't, you know, if you can't do this test without your knee flaring up, how are you going to be able to manage that? I think it's almost having the confidence in the system that you're going to be able to back, that you can tell them, look, if you take this time out now, we'll go through these progressions and we'll get you back. Is that a fair comment?
It's a very fair comment, and even getting the text messages off him now, and he said he's never been happier, really. He's saying, because he's actually able to run pain free, which he's never really, you know. So for him, he understands now, because during the season I was trying to tell him, look, we can't make the progress we need to make, and he didn't really fully listen to me, I don't think. And then he ended up getting injured again, and now he realizes why I was trying to pull him out. Like I was saying, this is why I was always saying we need to go and do this from start to finish. There's another girl that I had in, actually a younger girl, a sports lady as well, who had been around the houses a little bit and kind of torn hip flexor, I think is what they said, she was a sprinter as well, and then she kind of does she does other sports like hockey, and so she'd been around the houses and stuff, and basically was having a lot of knee trouble coming back, and you know, she was very down actually, which I found very interesting. I see younger athletes being quite down when they come in actually, which is interesting as well, and I could tell by her mood that all she really wanted to do was get back, and she really had kind of lost a little bit of hope. I kind of sensed from her, and I kind of just spoke first session, explained what way we were going to do it. Got a bit of a couple of wins early in the first session. Posterior knee stability, she was getting a lot of pain in her knee on that test, and then after just a little bit of hands-on, I think around her obliques, I spotted her mid-back was doing it, was causing a lot of the issue actually. Did a little bit of work around the obliques, and then a little bit on the hamstrings, and straight away her posterior knee came back and she had no pain, so she had complete buy-in straight away. And then what I found with her was that she didn't mind then doing the extra 2 sessions to actually do it properly to get back, because she could see the buy-in was there from getting them a couple of wins early. And her mom and dad were delighted, obviously, because they'd been around the houses and stuff, and you know, they're kind of losing a little bit of faith to get her back. She's only young and stuff like that. Like,
no, I think that's a good point as well. And you know, obviously, like that, they're really good success stories. And I think the key thing there is like almost just being honest with people and building trust. Like the first guy, for example, you know, you told them early in the season, he might not have listened to you straight away, but when that problem happened again, he's thinking, oh, Alan told me this is going to happen, and then he comes back, it's almost like, yeah, okay, let's do this properly. And you know, same with the second one. It's almost like telling them the plan from the start, having the confidence yourself and the clarity yourself, I suppose, to be able to make that plan for somebody, so that then you're able to guide them in terms of, okay, this is what we need to do and all. I think that's a really good point.
And sorry, just on it, Shane, I know you want to move on, very, but just there's another lad after coming into my head here, actually. I tell you, the reason why he's come into my head is because he actually had a similar problem to me that ended my athletics career, unfortunately, was the hip impingement problem. And he tried all the conventional rehab, strength, and he did a lot. In fairness to him, he tried everything now. We went down every route to avoid surgery, and it just didn't work out. And he eventually had to go in for his 2 operations, but he went to a good surgeon and he did a good job. But I actually took him from very start of the rehab process all the way through to the end, and he actually got back playing he was back playing in 6 months, which was crazy for me. That was double hip, that was right and left, and got back. And obviously I could relate to his injury because I'd been through it and stuff like that. So that obviously helped me in the process also, because he was getting kind of like just kind of the symptoms that just from surgery symptoms, like posterior glute med tightness a lot, and lower back stiffness a little bit. I was saying, look, this is all very normal. Like, just having the confidence and clarity with Dave's system, though, to take someone from there all the way through to the very end and see them back playing, and he was moving unbelievably well at the end of the season. I was delighted with that one as well, to be honest with you.
No, brilliant. Yeah, I think there's nothing more rewarding as a therapist when you get those results. With people who've tried everything else, and they're really on the last hope, and they're on the edge of almost quitting sport. But if you can get them back, I think that's what we're all in the profession for at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah, you're dead right. You do get a good buzz out of it now, I have to say, to be honest with you.
No, sweet. And I suppose, obviously, you've had a really good journey over the last kind of year or so yourself, and a few years in terms of your business and your clinic. I know you've got a great location there in Kildare. What are your plans now, Alan, I suppose, for the next kind of 6 to 12 months? Have you got any plans coming up for the clinic, or?
Well, I've kind of got to the stage now where I'm very happy with my skill set in terms of, not that I obviously I'm going to go on and do more stuff, but I'm very happy with the system that I have, which is Dave's, obviously, and you guys are always upgrading your stuff as well, and stuff like that, which is great, always evolving yourselves, and then we come on the journey, all the members come on, which is. But I'm very happy where I'm at with with my skill sets now. But in terms of where I want to go, I suppose I really need to look at the business side now a little bit more, if I'm being honest with you. Kind of promoting the business a bit more, possibly maybe look at maybe building the clinic, maybe bringing someone else in. That's kind of where I probably will be going, hopefully, now all going well. I just need to be able to bring in someone. The only thing is that because I'm using Dave's system and I've 100% confidence with it, if I was bringing someone in, they'd have to go on Dave's course, to be honest with you, because it just would be too much of a mismatch there if someone came in and was using kind of other I kind of have a way of treating now, and they'd have to kind of jump on board with that. So there's just maybe just having trouble just finding someone that would jump on board and commit with that system as well. That'd be my biggest priority. But I'd love to bring someone in that's enthusiastic and energetic and stuff like myself, and that kind of would be a good goal to have over the next 12 months, to be honest with you.
No, definitely, that's exciting. Yeah, and I mean, I'm laughing because it's exactly what we go through in the clinic here. So when we take on a new therapist, it's almost like, and if anyone's seen anyone listening, we had a blog here a while ago with the business blueprint, and it's almost like you start at step 1 where you're getting clarity on the problem. You go to step 2 where you're able to explain it to the patient, then step 3, etc. You go through all the clinical stuff. And then you get to where you are now when you're kind of at step 7, which is all about, growing your business now. You've kind of got the clinical skills fairly under control. You've built your word of mouth reputation. You've maxed out your clinical skills in terms of getting clients in. Now it's okay. Now I need to do something else to get more in. I'm ready to take on another therapist. But it's always then the next therapist you take on starts back at step 1 again, and you've got to get them up then to that 7.
Yeah, no, that's it. But I'd have no problem if someone came in, as I said, that matched my enthusiasm and energy levels, and that I'd have no problem. I'd get them on the mentorship straight away, obviously, and then I'd have to do a bit of the way you guys do your in-service stuff and stuff like that. But that actually, I'd have no problem with that at all.
No, good. Yeah, no, it's exciting. No, perfect. Cheers for coming on, Alan. It's been good to share your story. I suppose last thing to kind of wrap up, if you have any advice for anybody who's just starting their journey, or maybe is on the fence about whether to come onto the mentorship or not, what advice would you give them?
Basically, anyone who's starting, I just say just be patient with it. there's no one out there who's going to come on and go through module 1 to 12 and not have any questions or not have any doubts or anything like that. So just keep going over the content. That's exactly what I did. I'm a big believer in purposeful learning will actually stick. So just stick with that. And anyone considering, like myself, back, I don't know, I think it was January or February of 2018, and I was really kind of scratching my head thinking, like, will I or won't I? All I can say is that you'll definitely get a really, really good system that you can implement with any patient, whether it be an elite sportsman, or whether it be someone coming in like just an old man or lady coming in just with back pain or want to do a bit of gardening. The system caters for every athlete or person that's coming in. So I would say don't hesitate and just take the step and push on and develop your skills, I would say, to be honest.
Perfect, no worries. Cheers for that.
Shane, listen, it was great speaking to you, Shane, okay?
Good to see you again, Alan. All the best.
All right. And you look after yourself. Take care.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed today's story with Alan. Very, very inspiring. And Alan, again, is another therapist. When he asks a question on the Facebook group, it's, I can see how far he's come just by the higher levels of questions. And that's something I want to touch on now that he mentioned in today's episode, was that with a lot of the complex cases of knowing where to go next, what he's had to do is he's had to ask higher level questions. And I think it was someone like Tony Robbins said it. I know Carl Morris introduced me to the phrase the performance coach, and he said, the quality of your life is going to be dictated by the quality of questions that you ask yourself. And that's very, very important. And I've touched on this last week as well in the subjective assessment, how, especially with Alan, we were able to cut down him feeling the need to have 2-hour plus sessions with patients, was rather than just going through the motions, is that everything he does, he can justify, he's got rationale, and why he can do that is he genuinely and authentically understands what he's doing. Okay, he's just like Leon, he's not overcomplicating things, he's keeping things simple now. Okay, but he's taking a step back and he's asking himself some higher level questions. Okay, asking the right questions, okay, make all the difference. Okay, and again, that's where we might have an ankle pain presentation or a knee pain, and asking the right questions could send you somewhere else. Now, what I'm not a big fan of, and what I think is a lot happening these days, is people are taking these courses where they're saying, oh, it's the left jaw to the right ankle, etc., etc. I think, from my experience, I've tried and tested a lot of that stuff, and I think unless you have a genuine trauma, a genuine history, a genuine story to some of these body parts, I think what we're getting with a lot of these things is we're just getting these reflexive changes that when you come back 5 minutes later and you retest them again, I think you'll unfortunately will struggle to see long-lasting changes. But keeping that in mind, what that has done for me is that's opened my mind to this. But what I found is when you actually make it more meaningful to the patient, which is what Alan was alluding on, okay, where it makes sense to their story, that's where then when you can feel a lot more confident about working on a body part somewhere else in the body, okay? But as I said, I wouldn't just go through these cookbook recipes that I see a lot of therapists putting out on Facebook now about, oh, it's the left jaw to the left big toe or right big toe or whatever it is, okay? So I think first and foremost, does it make sense to the person's story? And that's where we go back to the subjective assessment. What is that person telling you from the second that they walk into your room? Are you actually listening to them, okay? Or are you just going through the motions, just ticking boxes, getting your VAS, your 24-hour patterns? Or are you genuinely listening to the patient because the patient's giving you clues? And that's the first module of the Go-To Therapist Mentorship. It's all about asking the right questions to elicit the information that's going to allow us to get that information and make sense of that information and what we're seeing in the objective assessment. And I'm sure you've heard me talk about that before. That's very, very important. And that's the other point that I wanted to touch on today, just listening to Alan's story. And the big thing that I hope you got from this today is the importance of linking the subjective assessment and the objective assessment. Alan talked about just doing tests for the sake of it. Unless you understand why you're doing something and how that relates to that person's story, what you might find with a test is a person may use a particular movement, okay, achieve a motor output or produce force, but why are they doing it that way? Okay, so again, it's not just as simple as, oh, their glutes weak. Why is their glute weak in inverted commas? I don't believe that for a second, by the way, but that's the next question we need to ask ourselves. And that's what Alan's talking about, asking higher level questions rather than just saying the glute's weak, I need to strengthen the glute. Why is the glute not happy to produce force in this particular movement that you're doing? Okay, better question again, why is that person's nervous system perceiving a threat to produce force at this particular area? Okay, so again, we can go a lot higher level questions than that, which we do in the mentorship, but that's something that I would definitely, really encourage you to take a step back, and rather than just treating the first thing that kind of pops into your mind or that you see, is we take a step back and we can make sense of that subjective and objective system. Okay, and then the final point I want to touch on today is Alan mentioning about how he's happy with his skills and his system now, and he's actually happy and he has the confidence to promote his clinic. Okay, so again, you would have heard Leon talk about, I do touch on business skills in the mentorship, and you will never see me, or I don't think you will ever see me teach a business skills course, okay, to anyone who hasn't gone through the mentorship. Okay, so again, I'm a big fan of business coaches. I'm a big fan of business skills. Okay, but what I want is, first and foremost, at the foundation of everything I do, is have that confidence and clarity to help people. Okay, that I know I've got the clinical skills to get that person from the initial assessment and deliver long-lasting results, even with those complex cases. Okay, so what you see a lot of these therapists do now is they're not maximizing, but they're getting the benefits of the word of mouth, and now they're starting to look at other therapists coming in, and they're actually in a good position, an authentic position to build a business. Okay, whereas I think a lot of therapists, they'll go to business coaching, they'll go on courses, and they'll try to get all the new patients they want. But unless you have the ability to explain, like Leon said, like Alan said, explain the problem and explain the step-by-step system that's going to overcome that problem, then you're going to really always be needing new patients. Whereas if you have 10 new patients a week, okay, but those patients are dropping off after 2 or 3 sessions because you don't have that authentic confidence and clarity, okay, or you get 4 new patients a week and you keep those patients on for 6 sessions or 8 sessions genuinely and ethically, okay, because they need that time, that graded exposure, then the patient or the clinic that's getting 10 new patients a week, that's they're getting 2-3 sessions a patient, versus the clinic that's having 4 new patients a week that has 6, 8, 10 sessions ethically, okay, they're going to be chalk and cheese. Okay, so that's where my mindset is with my own clinic. That's what I wanted to do with my clinic. As you evolve and you saturate your own time, that's then obviously when you need other therapists in. And just like our clinic here, I'm very, very particular about who works in my clinic. Alan has that same mindset here as well. And I think the majority of therapists in the mentorship are similar. The reason they're similar is because they want to give the best possible care to patients. That look, underneath it all, you've got that foundation, that authenticity, that you want to help people. Okay, and if you don't have that, then you're definitely not a right fit to work with us. And that's why, as I said, we're a little bit particular about the therapists that come into the mentorship. Okay, so that's it for this week. Plenty to go and listen to there. Well worth listening to Alan's story and Leon's last week as well. And in the next few weeks, we've got more clinical applications of how therapists are applying the mentorship content in their private practices and other settings as well. So once again, if you want to know more about the Go-To Therapist Mentorship, head over to www.thegotophysio.com/mentorship, or just go to www.thegotophysio.com and you'll see the mentorship page there, the tab, and then you'll also see plenty of other resources as well as the accompanying blog post to this week's podcast. Okay, so once again, thank you for your attention today, for your open-mindedness. As always, this is one way of looking at the body. It's not the only way, but this is the way that we do it here in the Pro Sport Academy and our clinic Pro Sport Physio, where we use the same approach with professional athletes as we do with private practice patients. And as I said, I think it's very important that you get to hear from therapists who are actually using the exact same exercises I use in professional sport with their patients in private practice, and you get to authentically hear from them rather than myself or Shane telling you how brilliant the mentorship is, because I'm not a big fan of that. Okay, so that's it for this week. I'll see you next week, and if this is one of the first times you've listened to the podcast, then feel free to go back to previous episodes. We covered a lot of clinical content in the first 15 episodes, and these episodes now are showing you how therapists are actually applying this clinical skills that we've covered in previous episodes. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'll see you next week. Have a great week. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's show. For more information, please visit www.thegotophysio.com, where you can download my 6-step patient adherence checklist absolutely free, as well as read the accompanying blog that goes with today's episode. We've got lots of cheat sheets and clinical content to help you implement to get real world results with real patients, that ultimately helps you become the go-to therapist and allows you to build a profitable, busy private practice or become that go-to therapist in professional sport. I'll speak to you soon on the next episode.